The Joseph Henry Lumpkin house can be seen as no other than a typical Georgian home, which usually has big columns and a great front porch. But this house is much more than that. It was the home of which you can probably guess to Joseph Henry Lumpkin. Lumpkin served as the first Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court when it was formed in 1842. He held this position until his death in 1867. The house itself hasn't really changed much from when this photo was taken in 1975, but the only thing that did change is the area around the house. As I first walked onto the property, I was overwhelmed by the atmosphere. The house is located right in front of a busy street that has many buildings and restaurants littered with people and cars going by. As you can see, the house looks exactly the same. In 1906, the house was moved several hundred feet closer to Prince Avenue, which then allowed it to become part of the community. When I first stopped to really take in the sight of this house, I felt moved to know that I was in the same place as someone who shaped the history of the state of Georgia. As I was standing in front of the door, I was very intrigued to know what was on the inside. I called many numbers and finally reached a lady that worked with a touring company in Athens. She told me that there had never been any tours of the inside. This really made me question as to why they wouldn't let me see what lies behind the door. Are they trying to hide something? Are they covering something up that they don't want the public to know? So I decided to do some digging on what Lumpkin did during his life. Lumpkin attended the University of Georgia at the age of 15, and he co-founded the UGA Law School. He ended up teaching law there before the university had to close due to the American Civil War. Early in his career, Lumpkin had expressed his opposition to slavery. However, as time went on, he ultimately became a supporter of slavery. He reasoned with this choice by saying, and I quote, that this whole institution is set forth by God and that they must protect and defend it at all costs and/or hazards that may want to take it away. He viewed that slaves are incapable of self-government. He felt that the institution of slavery was not only a good thing, but an economic, religious, and moral necessity. While he was a justice, he had to deal with many cases where slaves were involved, and his viewpoint of slavery was most likely a big factor when making a decision. In the 1860 case of Johnson versus Leavitt, Lumpkin allowed that when insults are given personally by a slave, it is right to punish instantly. After going through Lumpkin's cases that involved slaves, I quickly realized that he was never going to be in favor of the slave. Once I learned the real truth about who Joseph Henry Lumpkin was, I decided to visit the house again. As I stood in front of the stairs for the second time, I didn't get that same feeling as I did the first time. I had this feeling of disappointment because I knew what terrible things he did to people of color. Even though the outside of the house is beautiful, what used to lie behind the door was anything but beautiful.